Train horns blare through the night. Sirens echo between apartment buildings. A jackhammer starts at 6 a.m., long before the sun rises. For millions of Americans, noise never sleeps. But not everyone lives this reality. Just a few miles away, quiet neighborhoods sit insulated from the constant noise, protected by distance, design, and decades of policy decisions. But how did this come to be? We don't think of noise as pollution, not in the same way we think about contaminated water or smoke-filled air. Noise is often overlooked and dismissed as a minor annoyance, something you get used to. But the truth is, noise has measurable effects on the body and mind, and those effects are not shared equally. This video essay will explore what noise pollution is, the history of noise pollution, how zoning and housing shape exposure, and what solutions exist.
The constant train noise on top of the Manhattan Bridge might be taking years off people's lives in Dumbo. The train passes over this neighborhood in Brooklyn every few minutes, and each time it's like standing next to a motorcycle revving its engine. And residents aren't just losing peace and quiet. Chronic noise like this is linked to higher blood pressure, heart disease, and even reduced lifespan.
Noise pollution refers to unwanted or harmful levels of sound that can damage physical and mental health over time. Scientists measure sound in decibels, and according to the World Health Organization, sound above 65 decibels is considered to be noise pollution. Chronic exposure to noise raises stress hormones like cortisol. It also disrupts sleep cycles, which affects memory, mental health, and heart health. Exposure to higher levels of noise has also been linked to increased irritability and reduced cognitive performance, which can all have negative effects on a person's work or school performance. To understand the history of noise pollution and why it is so unevenly distributed today, we have to go back to the early 20th century. As American cities industrialized, factories, rail lines, and shipping routes exploded in number. The poorest residents, often recent immigrants, lived close to factories and rail lines where rent was cheapest. They were exposed to the loudest and most continuous noise, while wealthier residents already had the privilege of living further away from noisy industrial areas. But even back then, people recognized noise as more than just an annoyance. In 1906, New York City became home to one of the earliest organized anti-noise movements. The Society for the Suppression of Unnecessary Noise was founded by Julia Barnett Rice. Rice, who lived near a busy waterfront, was one of the first to argue that excessive noise harmed public health. Her organization pushed for reforms like limiting steamship whistles at night and reducing street noise near hospitals and schools. But as cities expanded in the 1910s through 1940s, noise sources multiplied. Cars became more common, railroads expanded, and airports introduced constant overhead noise. Cities did attempt to regulate this noise, but early laws were unsuccessful due to the lack of enforcement. In the 1920s, zoning laws began shaping American cities. Zoning was meant to separate industrial and residential areas. However, these policies often protected affluent white neighborhoods while placing noisy or polluting lands in poor Black immigrant communities. Factories, railroads, and later highways were placed next to these communities with the least political and economic power. Fast forward to today, the loudest neighborhoods in many cities align almost exactly with the lines drawn by discriminatory policies nearly 100 years ago. After World War II, federal housing policies deepened this issue. The practice of redlining denied loans to Black families and confined them in urban neighborhoods with poor infrastructure and higher exposure to noise. Meanwhile, white middle-class families moved to the suburbs with quiet, spacious areas intentionally designed to avoid industrial noise. Highways were often built directly through Black neighborhoods, forcing residents to live beside the constant traffic noise reaching 70 to 85 decibels. But what does all this history actually mean for those living in these neighborhoods today? It means chronic noise becomes chronic stress. When your body never gets silence, it never gets to fully rest. Elevated stress hormones stay active day and night, slowly wearing down physical and mental health. Noise also can lead to sleep deprivation, one of the most damaging yet invisible health issues. Constant noise, whether late night traffic, airplanes, or neighbors, breaks the deep stages of sleep the body needs for healing. Over time, this can increase the risk of heart disease, depression, and weakened immune function. For kids, the consequences are especially serious. Trying to do homework in a loud environment affects memory, learning, and focus. Studies of children living near busy airports and railways show delayed reading scores and increased difficulty concentrating, while in adults, long exposure to noise is linked to higher rates of hypertension, anxiety, and cardiovascular problems. These health conditions appear disproportionately in neighborhoods with high noise exposure. The communities who face the most noise often face the most health challenges, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. By the 1960s, noise pollution was recognized as a national issue, leading to the Noise Control Act of 1972. This act funded research, public awareness, and enforcement, but in the 1980s, federal funding was cut, shifting responsibility to states and cities that often lacked resources. Since then, noise pollution has grown steadily. Recent years has only heightened awareness. Residents near airports have protested increased flight frequency, especially after airplanes expanded their routes post-pandemic. Neighborhoods next to major highways have filed lawsuits demanding sound barriers, arguing that constant noise is violating their right to health and safety. New York City even launched noise detection cameras to ticket illegally loud vehicles, one of the first programs of its kind in the US. This being said, cities have solutions, but they require investment, planning, and political will. Cities can enforce updated building codes that require soundproofing in areas near highways or airports. They can also construct noise barriers, plant tree buffers, or reroute traffic away from dense neighborhoods. Urban planners can also reduce noise by redesigning intersections, adding green spaces, or limiting truck routes. Most importantly, policymakers can acknowledge that noise is a health issue and also an equity issue. Noise can be measured, reduced, and prevented, but only if we treat it like the environmental hazard it is. Noise pollution is more than loud sounds. It's a mirror of inequality. Who gets to live in a quiet neighborhood? Who gets restful sleep? Who gets to close their window and actually shut the world out? These are not small questions. They are questions about health, opportunity, and justice. Understanding the history of noise pollution forces us to confront the reality that peace and quiet are not evenly shared. But with awareness, policy, and a commitment to equity, they can be. Noise is not just a background issue. It's a story about who we protect, who we ignore, and what we value in the places we call home.